So today we are looking at a piece of audio that is, frankly, it's on fire. It's from the story box, and it is this just scorching rebuke of Candace Owens for her behavior toward Erika Kirk and her mother.
Right.
The speaker is clearly furious. The content is heavy. We're talking death, harassment, grieving widows.
And the goal seems to be just to, burn the opponent to the ground.
Exact. But here's the question we need to answer. Is the fire controlled enough to power an engine, or is it just, burning the house down?
That's the perfect way to put it. Because you have this raw, visceral, moral outrage. The speaker sees something they believe is just fundamentally evil.
Yeah, harassing a dying woman.
Exactly. And they're reacting with this full-throated condemnation. But if you look at the text, the sheer heat of that anger is actually melting the structure of the argument itself. It's messy.
Messy is the right word. We want to respect that passion, but we need to channel it. Turn it from a vent session that, preaches to the choir.
Right.
Into a rhetorical weapon that actually dismantles the opponent's credibility. And the very first place we hit a wall is just the vocabulary.
Oh, yeah.
I'm seeing words like psychopathic dingbat, deranged lunatic, demonic, minions from the pit of hell.
It reads like a text message you send at 3 a.m, doesn't it?
It really does. And I get the impulse. I do. When you see something you think is cruel, you want to use the most hurtful words you can find.
Sure.
But strategically, what happens when a totally neutral listener hears psychopathic dingbat?
They check out. It's an immediate dismissal. See, you've got two audiences here. You have the audience of the choir who already despise Candace Owens.
They love it. They're cheering.
Oh, they love psychopathic dingbat. But the audience of the fence, the people you actually need to convince to say, stop supporting her, they hear that and they just think, okay, this person is hysterical, this is just a catfight.
So you're saying this specific insult, dingbat, actually undermines the clinical term?
Psychopath, completely.
Psychopath is a really serious accusation. It involves antisocial personality disorder.
Right. Dingbat is what you call your goofy aunt who forgets her keys. When you mash them together, psychopathic dingbat narcissist, you're not diagnosing behavior. You're just throwing alphabet soup at the wall. It just sounds juvenile.
But isn't there a risk that if we sterilize the language, we lose that emotional punch? If we take out demonic and lunatic, does it just become boring corporate speak?
That's the fear, but I think the opposite is actually true. Clinical precision can be colder and frankly crueler than hot anger.
How so?
Well, think about a courtroom. Who is more intimidating? Is it the guy screaming, "You're a liar" at the witness stand?
No.
Or is it the prosecutor who calmly says the witness's statement contradicts the physical evidence in 3 specific material ways?
The prosecutor, every single time.
Right. So we need to replace the name-calling with descriptions of the behavior. Instead of "she is a raving, deranged lunatic."
Which sounds like a cartoon villain.
It does. We rewrite it to focus on the action. Maybe something like, "Her behavior exhibits a relentless, unmoored aggression."
That lands differently. It sounds like you're observing a specimen under a microscope.
Exactly. You become the doctor and she becomes the patient. You shift the power dynamic. You're not down in the mud wrestling with her.
You're standing above, taking notes.
You're taking notes. And look at the narcissist line. Instead of psychopathic dingbat narcissist, what if we said, this demonstrates a profound lack of empathy consistent with narcissistic patterns?
It forces the listener to process data instead of just filtering an emotion. You're asking them to look for a pattern, not just agree with your insult.
And that sticks. If I call you a name, you can laugh it off. If I point out a pattern of your behavior that makes you look unstable, that's much harder to shake.
Okay, but what about the religious language? The text calls her actions demonic and from the pit of hell. The target audience involves Christians, so maybe that works for them.
It works for the believers, sure, but it's still vague. Demonic is a conclusion, not an argument. I would argue we need to explain why it's demonic without just using the shorthand.
So, grounding the moral judgment in the specific action.
Yes. Don't just say it's evil. Say something like, targeting a grieving widow and her sick mother violates fundamental moral boundaries.
That captures the weight of demonic.
But it makes it accessible to everyone, regardless of their theology. It highlights the cruelty, not just the sin.
Okay, so we've tightened the vocabulary, we've stripped out the playground insults, and established a more clinical tone. But even the best words fail if they're not directed at the right people. This script spends a huge amount of time yelling at conservative men.
Oh, it certainly does. It's like a recurring loop. Where are the men?
You cowards. Silence is deafening. You claim to be Christians.
It feels like the speaker is just grabbing the listener by the lapels and shaking them, but doing it like every 30 seconds.
It feels like nagging. I hate to use that word, but it just loses its impact through sheer repetition.
Right. The speaker brings up the men, then talks about the mother, then goes back to the men, then a conspiracy, then back to the men again.
It's the shotgun approach, just firing pellets everywhere and hoping one hits. But the problem is, if you attack your audience constantly, they just stop listening. They put up a defensive wall.
So what's the fix?
We need to stop circling the drain and consolidate all of that into one single devastating segment.
Okay, so how do you structure that? Because the sentiment is valid. The speaker feels abandoned by these protectors. How do you shame them without making them tune out?
You have to trap them in their own identity. There's a rhetorical framework. It's sometimes called the values versus actions gap.
Okay.
It's basically a 3-step process to weaponize their own hypocrisy.
So walk us through that. What's step 1?
Step 1 is what I call the pedestal. You build them up. You actually quote the text where it says, you claim to be Christian, you grace the stage at AFAFest.
Right.
But instead of mocking it, you validate it first. You say, you call yourselves protectors, patriots, men of God. You built your brands on the idea that you stand for the vulnerable.
You make them nod along. Yes, that is who I am.
Precisely. You get them to agree to their own standard. Then, step 2, the drop. You present the undeniable reality that contradicts that standard. You use a line like, and yet you are watching a widow be harassed and you are doing nothing.
You create that dissonance. They can't be the hero and be silent at the same time.
The two things don't fit. But right now, the text just leaves them there just feeling bad. You're cowards, goodbye.
Which is a mistake.
It's a huge mistake. If you just shame people, they resent you. You need step 3, the redemption. You have to give them a specific, clear way to resolve the tension.
The original text just says, speak up. That's too vague.
Far too vague. We need to be concrete. Something like, one statement of support for Erika Kirk proves your integrity. Silence proves your fear.
That's interesting. You're almost gamifying their morality. Do this one task and you get to keep your title of protector.
It's an ultimatum, but it's one they can actually win. You aren't telling them they are trash, you're telling them they are acting beneath their station. It appeals to their vanity. You are better than this silence.
Which is a much more persuasive hook than you have no character.
It assumes they have character to begin with, which, frankly, is the only way to get them to act. If they truly had no character, shaming them wouldn't work anyway.
It's the difference between a heckler and a coach. The heckler just yells, you suck.
Well, the coach says you're playing sloppy, fix it.
The speaker needs to be the coach here.
Okay, let's pivot to this substance of the defense. The speaker isn't just yelling at men, they're trying to debunk this really complex conspiracy theory.
Right. With the timelines and technology connections to France and LLCs, this is the danger zone.
It is, and the Storybox transcript gets a little bogged down here. The speaker just calls these theories sick, twisted, and depraved.
But they don't really explain why they're wrong, other than saying, I know Erika and she wouldn't do that.
Which is anecdotal evidence. It's weak.
It's so weak. And if you just call a conspiracy theory sick, the conspiracy theorists win. They just get to say, see, they're getting emotional because they can't handle the facts.
So what's the move?
We need to use a technique called pre-bunking. Pre-bunking? Okay, that sounds like a buzzword. Is that just ignoring the claim or is it confronting it?
Think of it like a vaccination. You introduce a weakened version of the virus, the specific claim, so the audience's immune system can recognize it and destroy it before the real infection takes hold.
So you don't ignore it.
You name it, you shame it, and then you kill it with a superior fact.
So how would that look with the Lori Franz Faley LLC, the conspiracy that the mother has all these shell companies?
Okay, so right now the text is defensive. We need to flip it. First, you acknowledge the complexity, very calmly. Candace is citing public LLC records and a Mother's Day post to construct this web of conspiracy.
Say it without anger. You look like the adult in the room who's actually read the paper.
You establish that you aren't afraid of the evidence. Then you drop the hammer. The text actually mentions this, but it buries it. The police clearance.
Oh, right.
The rewrite should be something like, Candace has her Google searches. However, actual law enforcement, with full access to all the evidence, has cleared Erika Kirk.
Facts over feeling.
And then you apply the moral judgment. Therefore, ignoring a police clearance to scrutinize a sick woman's business filings is an investigation. It is harassment.
I see the flow. 1, here's their claim. 2, here's the hard fact that disproves it. 3, here's why they are bad for even making the claim.
It's so much tighter than the current version, which just feels like, I can't believe she said that. It's so weird. How dare she?
I can't believe it is an opinion.
The police cleared her is a reality. Always lead with reality. It makes the speaker look informed and the opponent look desperate.
Speaking of desperate, let's talk about the emotional pacing here. The whole narrative regarding Erika's mother, Lori.
This is really the heart of the piece.
The details are just heartbreak. She's frail, she's ill, there was a countdown to her death posted on Instagram. But in the current draft, these details are just scattered all over the place.
It dilutes the tragedy. Narrative structure relies on escalation. You can't just bounce back and forth between bad and worse. You have to build a staircase.
So where do we put the mother?
The attack on the mother is the crossing the Rubicon moment. It has to. It's the point of no return. It needs to be the climax of the argument.
Okay, so how do you build to that?
You'll start with the attacks on Erika. That's the baseline, attacking a widow. That's bad. Then you escalate.
But she didn't stop at the widow. She went after the dying mother. That's the much higher step.
And the third step?
The text mentions Candace appearing at a Catholics for Catholics event.
That's the dagger. That has to go last. Just imagine the sequence.
Okay.
1. She attacked the grieving wife. 2. She terrorized the frail, dying mother. And 3. Immediately after doing that, she walked onto a stage at a Catholic event using the dead husband's name to sell tickets.
Oof, yeah, that hits hard.
It reveals the hypocrisy in a single blinding flash. If you put the Catholic part earlier in the script, it gets lost. But if you put it at the end, after you've established the absolute cruelty to the mother, the audience is just left sitting there in stunned silence.
That's how you structure moral outrage.
It paints a villain arc. It shows not just meanness, but a systematic, profound betrayal of values. It creates a portrait of a monster without you ever having to use the word monster.
Facts do the work for you.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've rebuilt the language, the audience appeal, the fact-checking, and the narrative flow. But we still have to stick the landing. And the current ending is, well, it's wishful thinking.
It's a prayer and not a plan. The speaker says, I hope and pray Erika goes, guys, that's it, and suggests they legally shut her up. It sounds like a friend venting over wine. I just hope she sues her.
Right, it lacks teeth. But the text does mention a precedent, that Wolf Financial Guy lawsuit.
Which is a goldmine. Why are we hoping? We should be advising. The tone needs to shift from a helpless bystander to like a war room strategist.
So don't say, I hope.
Say, the path is clear.
How would you phrase that?
Something like, we don't need to hope for justice. The precedent exists. The Wolf financial case. The grounds exist. Imputing involvement in a death despite a police alibi is defamation per se. The remedy is not Twitter silence. It is a lawsuit that bankrupts the lie.
Wow, that sends a chill down your spine. It stops being about drama and it starts being about consequence.
It empowers the victim. I hope implies Erika is weak. The remedy is a lawsuit implies Erika has a loaded gun and just needs to pull the trigger. It changes the ending from a whimper to a warning.
And for those conservative men listening, the ones we discussed earlier, that legal threat might actually be the thing that wakes them up. They understand liability.
They do, and they understand winning. If you frame this as a legal battle that can be won, they're much more likely to jump on board than if you just frame it as a sad, hopeless situation.
So pulling all of this together, we aren't changing the sentiment of the original transcript. The anger is righteous. The facts are on the speaker's side.
The raw material is fantastic. It's passionate, it's informed, it's brave. All we are doing is stripping away the interference.
We're trading dingbat for narcissistic pattern.
We're trading nagging for the values-action gap.
We're trading defensiveness for pre-bunking.
And we're trading wishing for strategizing.
Right. Anger is a fuel, but rhetoric is the engine.
Yeah. If you just dump the fuel on the ground and light it, you get a flash and some smoke. Everyone looks and then they walk away. But if you put that same anger inside a structured, engine-pacing, vocabulary, logic, you generate movement. You can actually run the opponent over.
And that is the goal. Not just to be heard, but to be effective.
To be undeniable. That's what this rewrite achieves. It makes the entire argument undeniable.
So, to the listener who submitted, you have a powerful voice. The passion you have for protecting this family is evident in every single line. We just hope these tools help you sharpen that sword so it cuts even deeper.
I would love to see a version 2 of this script. With these changes, I think it could be a definitive piece of commentary on this whole situation.
We invite you and all our listeners to take these critiques, rewrite your work, and send it back in. Let's see how sharp we can get. Thanks for listening.